We've had discussions this year. He sent me documentation and so forth and so forth. And it's been generally found that some of the companies need the young professionals to be developed. Now, very interesting. Sorry, Annika, you're recording, yeah. So very interesting. Once we sent out this invite, we sent some documents out, it became evident that there was a need. And I'm not only getting from young professionals the request to become part of this. There's even older guys who are saying they would like to be part of this group where we can share stuff and so forth and so forth. So we're still working on it. This is our first meeting of this nature, and I think it'll be a good start. So we said, okay, fine, let's cover issues that are relevant to young professionals, and let's use that as the group of people. We're winning. We're going to be winning very soon with EXA. We've got more people wanting to join and register with EXA. Young guys got degrees, sitting in a company, and they need to be part of this. So Theodolan was the mastermind behind this, and he will kick off now, and you'll understand why. But then we also wanted Jock Farmer in, our guy who does our training, who's our training boffin, and then in came Dr. Letitia van der Merwe, who will also do a paper, and she's into the women in mining. So that roughly is a bit of a background why we're going for young professionals. I think with the situation we have these days, where it's all on remote issues, we're most probably going to have workshops, courses, talks, whatever you want to do. Other countries over the world do a lot of this. So it's very crucial that we make sure that the young professionals at least have input, can ask questions, and even do presentations for us as we would need. So that's a bit of the background. I would like to welcome everybody in now, and I just want to go through the rules. We always say that it's a non-collusion meeting, so we're not colluding and saying this and that and not that. And then I also just cover the rules. You all got the agenda. It was in the pack. You can click on the agenda on the notification, and you can print it or watch it. And those are the Teams Microsoft rules, where we put our videos off and our sound off and so forth and so forth. So we've got an hour and a half. It is recorded. Once we've done it, we will circulate it and then ask people. The one thing I would like us to do, and Theodolan will most probably push this a bit harder than what I do, is we want the names of these guys that are the ones who are registered with EXA, and who are paid up, so we can start that database, and also ask people in your companies, which is quite wide, to also participate in this. So that's, I think, enough from me. We can kick off. Theodolan, I'm going to hand over to you, and then you guys can just sort of carry on. I'm not going to do a whole talk between each. And when you start, just give a short introduction, who you are, and why this is a subject matter that you are proud of and want to be involved in. So thanks to everybody. Thanks to our speakers. I will say something right at the end, and I'm going to now mute myself. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nico, thanks for that introduction. Hi, my name is Theodolan Govender. I'm the National Engineering Manager for AfriSam. And today I'm going to be taking you all through the construction industry talent management objectives that I do believe that we as a larger group can do more for the industry on the whole. I'm just going to put up the presentation and put off my my video, if you don't mind. Okay, so firstly, I've got quite a bit to go through, so if you could just bear with me. If you would like to stop me through the presentation, that's not a problem as well. Okay, so just a bit about the construction industry background. So what I've done is I've done a bit of research in this area, So it's backed with quite a bit of facts as well. And what we're trying to do is develop a talent management system for the industry. It varies obviously from organization to organization, depending on culture and the type of psychological contracts we have, but I'll go through it in the presentation. So the first part is with the construction industry contributes significantly to the stimulating employment and growing of the South African economy. The compounded annual growth rate currently sits at 100 billion by 2024. That's from research and markets, and that's just basically the rate of return of an investment over a period. It is the cornerstone of the South African economy, but one that is under pressure, and if nothing changes, it will become increasingly unsustainable. The industry has gradually suffered over a period of time from reduced government spending, a depressed economy, less foreign investments due to the recent downgradings, and escalation of prices for materials. Further, high labor turnover, poor mentorship, and loss of skilled laborers have severely impacted on the technical capability of firms to deliver construction projects on time, within cost, and the standard of what our customers require. Further, the COVID-19 pandemic has now exacerbated organizational survival, and many need to adopt various strategies that entail considerable adaptability to the internal and external environments. Okay, with the South African GDP annualized growth rate shrinking by 51%, of which the construction sector sustained economic contraction by 76%, and the unemployment rate, I've put in the expanded definition, so those are people that were also not looking at work at that stage, is up to 43.1% in quarter 3, up from 42% in quarter 2. If you don't use the expanded definition, it's sitting around 30.1% plus minus. So now organizations have pursued or are in pursuit of alternative strategies such as downsizing and restructuring to weather the storm. Recent results from a South African recruitment tender survey that was conducted a year and a half ago. Attracting and sourcing of highly skilled talent remains a top priority for employers, despite the notorious shortage of skills in the country. But 59% of the organizations view the sourcing of highly skilled talent as the most important in talent acquisition. About 46% of organizations find a shortage of skills to be the biggest obstacle to attracting the best talent. The contraction of the construction industry has caused a decline in the commitment of skilled professionals to pursue a career in South Africa. But 2 days back, I read an article on Business Tech from CEO of RMB Bank. And what he says there is that on the post-lockdown, there's quite a big brain drain of skilled people between 30 to 40 years leaving South Africa. And this is obviously with the array of issues that are occurring currently in our country. So what is the research problem on here? So to weather the hyper-turbulent and depressed economy context, organizations need to draw from a wider pool of employees. In addition, the spin-off, benefit, and consequence of adopting an inclusive philosophy of TM leads to a more satisfied and motivated employees. It is therefore crucial to foster an inclusive TM culture in order to nurture positive employee psychological contract and in turn improve organizational performance. Organizations in the construction industry will benefit to creating an inclusive approach to TM, as by utilizing their strengths, it energizes people and makes them feel good about themselves, which can contribute to an individual's overall well-being. It is of utmost importance that inclusive TM takes priority in the construction sector, and organizations realize the benefits of how inclusive TM can improve productivity and organizational performance. So what is talent management? So I've taken 3 definitions, one international and supporting local as well. So TM is a set of organizational activities concerned with attracting, growing, and retaining skills in alignment of strategy and attaining of set goals. TM is a strategic function which calls for the alignment between talent acquisition, development and deployment of processes and business priorities. And further, TM is a strategic priority for profit organizations, especially in the private sector. So if you look at these three definitions, they're very common. What's common about them? They talk about strategy or strategic function or priority. They have alignment in most of them, and they talk about set goals, business priorities, and profit. Now that's what embalms talent management, both from a philosophical point of view and strategy, as well as an operational aspects. So there has to be a golden thread from developing to implementation. Why the need? So retaining and harnessing talent will be the most decisive factor that will determine the success and effectiveness of organizations in the future. Joyce and Slocum stressed that organizations are failing to capitalize on opportunity for strategic success that a team can bring, and that the importance of TM is being overlooked. So a little bit of TM philosophies. It's defined as the fundamental assumptions and beliefs about the nature, value, and instrumentality of talent that are being held by their firm's key decision makers. Many researchers argue whether talent is innate or acquired, or whether talent is constant or persistent, or a persistent trait, or it is a potential that can be developed. So just looking at this here, and we will discuss, so obviously I am talking more theoretical now, and I will bring it into practice. But if you have a look at these two statements here, there's a lot of contradiction at a higher level, whether talent, we're born to talent, or can it be developed in people? And the other is, if you do not have a philosophical stance on this, you lose your way down the path in trying to implement. So Hiles, Chai, and Priest suggested that there are two perspectives of TM applications, being inclusive, which is the egalitarian approach or strength-based approach, and the exclusive approach, which is the elitist approach. Talking about the exclusive or elitist approach, TM initially was developed as an exclusive approach, which was utilized as a tool for employees who are valued and different, and incorporated about 15% of the employees who were deemed talented. This elitist strategy would perfectly fit an organization dominated by a competitive culture and where employees expected rewards for exceptional performance. Many organizations favor an exclusive TM approach, identifying high potential employees to be designated to future leadership positions, and where employees expected that exceptional performance is rewarded and thus accepted an unequal allocation of benefits. Many organizations still today support this process due to the perceived cost effectiveness and efficiency. From an inclusive stance, the egalitarian perspective stated that TM is related with managing the talent of all employees. All employees, and we've got to be careful here, it's the people that who want to be developed have the potential to become talent. Inclusive TM is defined as the recognition and acceptance that all employees via participation have talent together with the ongoing evaluation and deploying of employees in positions that give the best fit and opportunity for employees to use those talents. Inclusive TM is able to foster employee well-being, learning, and performance throughout the whole workforce by giving all employees the opportunities to fully unlock their potentials. So these last two slides just looks at the pros and cons of exclusive and inclusive talent management at a very high perspective. From a TM framework perspective, so this is an overarching perspective where it combines your principles, your practices, your processes, which are to come. And what it says is that the frameworks play a pivotal role on not only coexisting with organization programs, but also be aligned and provide the necessary support to achieve effectiveness. TM must be aligned to business strategic objectives in order to maintain a supportive stance. So just for that understanding, I've used the South African Board of People Practices Standards framework as an example. There's many out there, but if you have a look at this top tier here, this is the business strategy area. Then you have your practices and processes under the HR architecture section. And then under your delivery platform is your communication area. So you can see talent management is embedded into your one of your strategic objectives. So it's horizontally aligned to your objectives, and it's vertically integrated into your practices and processes. It's a very important area when a talent management system is developed. And then the communication channel, whether it's through information services or other propositional services that can be delivered to the employees, that will be done at this level. And then on the outside, you've got your prepare, implement, review, and improve. That is basically the tool in terms of auditing and receiving feedback, whether the system is working or not. So some of the other key points here is it's aligning TM to the organizational strategy is critical. It allows for the identification of capability and risk gaps that need to be addressed. And that will come out through your auditing process. And then the framework advocates for harnessing of strong leadership behavior in support of TM practices. And we'll touch on leadership soon. So a TM standard is defined as a proactive design and implementation of integrated talent-driven organizational strategy directed to attracting, deploying, developing, retaining, and optimizing the appropriate talent requirements as identified in the workforce plan to ensure a sustainable organization. It provides a benchmark in practices, processes, and implementation against which to measure proposed interventions. What are practices? Practices are aimed at improving employee benefits, employee engagement, learning and development, and an instrument for measuring the outcomes of TM are absenteeism, turnover, and productivity. Many studies support the concept that those organizations with a strong link between TM practices and corporate strategy report higher levels of financial performance. Now looking at the processes, a TM process incorporates talent forecasting being weighed in alignment to the organizational strategy. A talent review is conducted where gaps are found and addressed through a structured TM system. So I've also taken another example. This is a TM process. So when we're developing a talent management process, so I'm just going to look at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. At the first tier, you look at what we've understood of what's philosophies, principles, and approaches. So that needs to be developed. And we use our HR personnel, who has input and experience in this field to develop the structures, the philosophies first, then the principles and approaches. And it needs to be backed from top management, starting from your CEO. Because if it's not backed at that level, it'll never be backed going downwards to the implementation side. Once that is resolved, then you add in your leadership and key competencies frameworks. So you develop those. The competency frameworks needs to be embound with the organizational culture. It's very all well and nice to have a strong competency frameworks, but if it doesn't talk to the culture of the organization, you lose the people on the way. These competency frameworks, especially from a leadership side, needs to be looking at the company in the future and not currently where they stand. So it's aligned with the strategic objects from a long-term perspective. It needs to include areas like coaching and mentoring, on-the-job and off-the-job training, etc. Once that is resolved, then we look at the talent needs analysis from your workforce plan. For some of us that know, our workforce plan is developed to identify skills, and then talent management and successes planning develop those skills. So this area also needs to incorporate key stakeholders like your line management, together with HR and other specific personnel that can add value to identify key competence areas that are important to the business. Further, we move to an external view through the labor market analysis, and we develop a long-term demand-supply forecast. So we look at the market and see, can we attain the skills outside? How easy or hard is it to get it? And that's how we get that forecasting. So when we move to level or tier 2, we've got our forecast now, and then we have to look at a talent review. So that is basically looking at our skills in the organization and seeing, can we have a mesh of them, and how long will it take for these skills to mature? That's where we'll produce a gap analysis. And then moving to the tier 3, what happens on this section, you take the gap analysis and you develop the bespoke talent management system. It includes your job profiling, succession planning, career pathing, and so on. And once that is developed, you look at some initiatives or interventions that can fast-track certain process to alleviate that gap analysis, such as accelerated development plans, a change in onboarding, links to performance management, etc. And that, in a nutshell, is your TM processes. Okay, so in general, talent management best practices. When an organization faces an economic downturn, an effective TM system is what is required for survival. The workplace processes and systems must effectively work together to produce a TM strategy that will provide the best results for an organization. A study conducted by the American Society of Training and Development identified some practices for TM. These are obtain support for TM from top management, standardized talent review and feedback on processes, appoint a single function owner to the process, develop an organization culture that supports TM, very important, assuring consistency among TM activities and increase visibility of TM initiatives. Aiming for best fit may be much more effective. That is, designing and implementing an approach that will meet the needs of an organization in its context. That's a very strong point, because we often outlay these fancy systems and it's not aligned, with competence of the teams. And we straight away lose the effectiveness of what we're trying to achieve. I've noted some challenges in TM. So the first one is hierarchical organizational structures may relegate the accountability of senior management and commitment to the TM process. And this is just basically is that the senior managers see it from just the top view. They don't see what's happening in the ground. And it's important, if it's structured in this way, that the system allows them to maneuver to understand what is happening at the bottom. Organizational growth causes resource flexibility concerns and makes it more difficult to implement planned and systematic processes. Medium-sized enterprises sustain a high level of informality, more personal style management. Thus, TM practices are often carried out on a more unplanned and unsystematic level. The size, duties, and functions of the HR department also depend on the size of the company. Employees covering several areas sometimes have a more operative rather than a strategic function. The HR function is an integral part of many business sustainability strategies and provides the insight and guidance in terms of the processes critical for improving employee performance and management. Stakeholder support to drive the processes and programs are required for TM systems to be effective. That point is very important, because if all stakeholders are not accountable and do not play their role, the system will not be implemented accordingly. And lastly, a lack of understanding our retention strategies should be designed in order to link to TM initiatives. So just a little about leadership. The overt behavior of leaders provides an insight into the attitudes towards employees. Leadership-driven TM practices engage high potential talent, which in turn assures organizational success and performance. The Institute of Employment Studies research show that TM can alienate managers and employees if it is an artificial and jargon-laden HR managed process, out of step with the real needs of the business and individuals. Skitzer and Stuns identified that management does not spend enough time on building talent pools and are not in tune with the best practices and updated techniques to develop, mentor, and nurture talent. So coaching and mentoring is a subject on its own. And it's very important that the personnel that have given the baton to do both coaching and mentoring are trained or go on ongoing training and understand what they are doing, because their information related to the mentee and the coachee is what they envisage to create from them moving forward. According to the Deloitte Global Human Capital Report 2019, interesting enough, 17% of South African organizations say that they are not effective at developing leaders to meet evolving challenges. About 46% report they are only somewhat effective in identifying leaders to move to rapidly the digital economy. This correlates to a significant percentage of South African companies not effective in developing leaders. So I thought about putting I use the word complementers, but in research philosophy, we use the word underpinning, which means supporting. So a psychological contract underpins a TM to quite a bit of an extent. And it is defined as the individual beliefs of the reciprocal obligations between the individual and the organization. The literature suggests that PCs can be relational or transactional. So relational contracts are the employee's perception of what the obligations of the employer are, and vice versa. And these could be in employee commitment, employee performance, open communication, management style and consistency of feedback, and it's non-monetary. So on a transactional level, it is monetary. So if you pay me and I'll show you how I'll perform, you give me a bonus and maybe I'll perform better. So that is what they are talking from that end. From a literature point of view, the identification of talent has become a major actor within the employment relationship, in which the terms of exchange are reevaluated in the employee organization relation through the psychological contract. Now, there's much about psychological contract, but obviously due to time constraints, I can't get into that. The other is organizational culture, which underpins TN. Organizational culture is a set of values, shared values, beliefs, and norms that influence the way an employee thinks, feels, and behaves in the workplace. Organizations should focus on creating a culture that accommodates and supports the diversity of the workforce in order for employees to feel a sense of acceptance and belonging, to avoid feelings of isolation. The culture of an organization evaluates the organization's mindset around opportunities offered internally. Now, just as an example, and there's much examples, if you have a look at this diagram, so an organization will know what culture it wants to portray. Where you see the Artines and written clan culture, it's what it means is it allows its people to be flexible and freedom to act, and it's internally focused. So it's more people culture, and that's why they use the word clan. Then below is our hierarchy culture. There's stability and control, and it's an internal focus. So there's a lot of rules and regulations, but they focus on their people. On the market section, it's stability and control, but it's externally focused. So they are more interested in what's happening on the market, and they're expecting that people, get the work done, etc., and so on. So taking this into concept, it is very important before a TM philosophy, practices, processes, and standards are put in place. You have to align your organization culture and make a bespoke program in line with what you're trying to implement. Okay. Just lastly on this, just to sum up, it's important to develop a bespoke structured TM framework embedded into organizational strategy. Ensure leadership commitment and support at all levels. Incorporate psychological contract and organizational culture into the TM process. Ensure associated stakeholders have roles and responsibilities that hold them accountable. This includes the talent identified employees on the program. Provide the relevant ongoing training for management relating to the coaching and mentoring. Develop TM retention strategies. Remember, the stigma attached to the high cost of implementing TM systems should be reviewed in line with market conditions. And finally, invest in basic internal and external TM benchmarking analytic tools that correlates and tracks talent initiatives. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, if there's any questions, you can ask here. Otherwise, maybe in the background or through ASPASA. But yeah, it's a passion driven from a lot of us, and if we work together, we can resolve quite a few areas. Talent management is obviously a big area to look at, so I've just focused more from an industry perspective this time around. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Theolan. That was great. I think I'm going to hand over to Jock Farmer, who's ready. And Jock, you can carry on. Thanks, bro. Sorry, I don't know where Jock is. I see he tried to phone me. Jock, are you there?
I think he's kicked himself off, Nico. I'll quickly see if I can find him.
Oh, he says he's got load shedding. I don't believe that. We don't have any load shedding. Right, I think we're not going to waste people's time. Anneke, try and contact him. I think what we can do is we'll ask Dr. Letitia van der Merwe if she's ready, and then she can run with us. Letitia, are you all right? Thanks, Letitia.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you for the time and the opportunity. So at the moment when you start talking about concepts like women in leadership and women in mining, you sometimes get extremely interesting reactions. People picture things about you, and you also sometimes get interesting labels around your neck. So colleagues, I just want to make very clear today that what this not is in terms of discrimination. This got not to do with reversal of things. It's got nothing to do with saying one gender is better than another gender. My topic and my theme is a lot more in terms of how do we ensure inclusivity inside of organizations, and how do we stop doing things that we unconsciously sometimes do in terms of excluding people from our talent pools, as was indicated by a previous speaker, and sometimes just some forms of our business practice. So I'd like for us to start off with a little bit of an activity. So if you wouldn't mind, please just go for me to the chat function. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Teams, on the top of your screen, there's a little black toolbar. There's a little record button. Then next to it, it says participants. Then there's a conversation button. If you will please click on there, and in the chat say to me your views on inclusion, diversity and inclusion inside of a business. Do you think it's important? Is it a waste of time? Is it a management fad? Maybe some views from the audience in terms of you. Please go to the chat and just share with me your views in terms of the importance of diversity and inclusion inside of our workplaces. I'm going to give us a minute or two to do that, please. Thank you. I can see some people are busy typing. We'll just give it a moment or two. So from Thulin, we got a comment around if it used effectively, it promotes organizational performance. Got some more people typing. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for those of you that were willing to share with us and type in the comments. I can see some more people are commenting. Thank you, guys. So colleagues, let's go a little bit in terms of what does the research tell us. I absolutely agree. So the research is saying to us that if we apply diversity and inclusion inside of our business, it will positively impact your business performance on the following three components. It will have an increase in your product, in your profitability and your creativity. You have stronger governance, better problem solving, and what you also find it is better in terms of longer term value creation. If you value those kind of things. What we've also seen, it does have a positive impact on innovation and culture. So colleagues, the business case is that diversity and inclusion seems to be very important for business, and there's a proven business case that it actually adds value and that it increases performance, does increase better value creation over time, and it brings innovation, better leadership, less toxicity inside of an organizational context. So diversity and inclusion almost starts with a mindset that you and I have to what do we mean with this? What is the importance around that? How do we want to impact it inside of our businesses? So my conversation with you today specifically is in terms of women in mining and the importance of including this from a diversity perspective inside of your organizations. So we've had a couple of conversations with Nico from ASPASA, and to say, how can we do this from the perspective from ASPASA to help industry and its members? So one of the key things that we actually want to do in this space is to help women in mining to find their voice. Now, colleagues, there's a lot of debate in terms of why do you train women differently or separately to men? Does it actually add value? Is it not just reverse discrimination? So what we have found, and specifically in a South African kind of context, that the way that cultural norms is sometimes put in place, that the way that people grow up, the way that some thinking has happened, has created a mindset of people that they're not good enough to participate. They're not equal in their nature. So what we started to do is work with a number of women and a number of industries in this country to say, okay, let's at least just start with laying or leveling the playing field. Because what we have found, if we work with people in terms of their self-esteem and their self-worth, the whole gender issue goes away. Then people no longer define themselves in terms of their gender identity. They define them in something that is bigger than that. And what it helps with is better collaboration, better performance inside of our workplaces. So that's really what we're trying to do with these kind of programs that we do to help women in mining find their voice and help them to actually succeed and be the best versions of themselves. I also have quite a soft spot for these kind of topics. I don't have to tell you about the statistics that we're dealing with violence in this country against women and children. It's horrific. If I start telling you the stories, your hearts would break. You just cannot believe that another human being would do that to another person. And that's not only domestic violence, that is even some violence towards women in the workplace. It's absolutely scary. And somewhere I think we as industry also have a responsibility to do this and to focus in and to break that cycle. So what we want to do, based on the conversations with Nico, we would like to launch a Women in Leadership program specifically for your industry within this financial year. It's a well-designed, well-established program. It is accredited by the University Free State's Business School. And what we'd like to do, with your permission, is that ASPASA, on behalf of you, actually apply for funding at the MQA. The funding period is just opened, and we are able to apply for leadership, for management. There's a whole bunch of programs. For those of you that are interested and to have more information on that, please just shout and Nico can share with you if you would like to acquire funding for other kind of programs inside of your business. Absolutely no guarantee that we will get the funding, but at least that's a start. And then from your side, also with your permission, if you have talent inside of your business that you'd like for us, and young professionals, older professionals is quite okay, to actually help us to start with that initiative. So colleagues, before I move on to my next part of the conversation, where I'm asking or I'm sharing some suggestions that you can do inside of your own organization, let's maybe just reflect back and give a little bit to the audience. Is there anyone at this stage that would maybe like to make a comment? You're welcome to raise your hand. If you're not comfortable, I know a lot of people prefer typing for me. And thank you. I see Johan and Bafana has also shared some views in terms of diversity. I see Nadina shared some views. Colleagues, is this something that you think you as industry would like to support? Is this something that ASPASA can take forward and see if we can obtain some funding for this, and at least run a pilot program this year to see what the impact is and if it actually adds benefit in terms of your industry? Please raise your hand if you'd like to comment. Otherwise, I would appreciate a comment inside of the chat. Thank you, Bafana. It seems like we have some support here. Colleagues, please feel free to comment. I see there's some questions in terms of the details around the program. By all means, we will send you the brochure via Nico and he can distribute it and share it with you that you can see what it is. So just this program is in the field of higher education. So unit standards works a little bit different in that space. So this is accredited by the university as a short learning program. It feeds into the management development qualification, so people will get through RPL can get access to some of the other qualifications, but it is specifically focused on an NQF level 5 for those of you that this jargon makes sense to. Okay, so colleagues, thank you for that. Thank you for people that have showed support. We will then keep you posted. And then just in terms of, if we start to think in terms of women in the workplace, what we can do from a company's perspective, there's an initiative from the Mineral Council specific, which I know ASPASA is also a member, and Nico, if I remember correctly, you also sit on that board. So there's a whole campaign around in terms of driving women in mining, and that is not only in terms of your sector, but across the other mining sectors as well. They've built their philosophy on 7 kind of pillars, but I think from an organizational perspective, and just make it practical, is to really reaffirm zero tolerance for violence. It is a problem that we have in the country, and we need to showcase to people how to treat one another. It is about being deliberate and mindful to not exclude people. So I remember in the old days when people were allowed to smoke in the offices, if you had a leader at that stage in time that smoked, and you were part of the smokers, you knew what was going on because a lot of the conversations happened then. If you didn't smoke, you tended to be excluded. So no one was evil, no one didn't want to not include you. It was just the nature. We are not always conscious in terms of our actions and what we are doing and the impact of our behaviors in others and how it sometimes exclude people. So it starts with your mindset. Do you believe that inclusion is important? Do you believe that it can add value to your business? And then start adjusting your behaviors to say, okay, what can we do? Then some of the recommendations the Mineral Council is also posing is to say, make your physical environment a lot more inclusive, cater for people with different needs, and this goes beyond just gender kind of differences. And then lastly is to really look into the mirror and to really hold people accountable for when they start to stereotype and to fight those biases. So for me, one of the funniest ones that I've seen in mining, when there was a request for PPE equipment for women, for some strange reason, it came in pink. So that's a little bit of a stereotype that all women like pink. So colleagues, it's really in terms of challenging ourselves and say, how would I feel if someone else treats me like this? So this is really something that we in ASPASA would like to do, and hopefully add some value to people from a personal perspective, but also from a professional perspective. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for people that have engaged with me and shared their comments. Thank you for that. Nico, I don't know if you want to add anything, because you and I had a couple of conversations around this, but this is our story.
Thanks, Letitia. Now, I think I was just sitting and thinking about it. We get people out there with this COVID lockdown story that are coming to us as ASPASA and adding a lot of value to the industry. And I thank you for coming to ASPASA. We have spoken to the Pot University to see if we can get anything else there. In the meantime, or maybe at the end, Jock has got a problem. I don't know. He's got a cut in his power or something. It's not a load shedding, because Marius is also here, so it's not the town. It might be a hope thing. It looks to me as if Jock is not going to make it, which is a pity. So we'll have to set up an additional session with Jock and the training and so forth and so forth. Maybe what I could do is interview him, let him do our presentation, the presentation that he would have done, and we'll circulate the video recording to you all so that we can add it into this. Letitia, I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to say?
No, I'm fine. Thanks, Nico.
Thanks. No, well, I must just say thanks to all of you. We're cutting the time a bit. I'll get Jock's papers in somehow or other. Thanks to everybody. If there is questions, email me. We'll send them to Letitia. Letitia can talk to people and phone them and so forth. Theodolin and Letitia, thanks a huge amount. We've done it in an hour, so it's great, and we'll talk again. We're going to follow up on these workshops. If there's any subject matters that you think we should cover under this young professionals theme, then please send me themes where young professionals might want stuff. Thank you very, very much, and keep well.